This took me over an hour to film because I kept ranting. So we'll see how the editing goes. If this is late, that's why. I'm sorry. Hey there, lovely people. Welcome back to another Writing Tip Tuesday. It's been a minute, but I have something I'm very passionate about that I would like to talk about that might not pertain to most people who write, but it may pertain to making myself feel better about situations that we are in right now, which is what makes a good adaptation. So hear me out. I love the concept of adaptations. I don't love every adaptation, every movie, TV show, whatever adaptation of a book that I've seen, nor do I love every single video game, whatever, to movie adaptation. However, I did study them. I went to film school, as you may know if you've been around for a little bit. I focused on screenwriting, playwriting, and just general writing in that order during my college career. I love the idea of adapting things. I used to offer a service on my Fiverr that's no longer active where I would take your story, your book, whatever you wrote, and write it into screenplay format for you, not changing any of the details other than what is necessary for an adaptation, changing the format more than anything else. I love adaptations, and I know what goes into making one good because I wanted to. I wanted to know how to do that and how to be effective with it. And I think that part of my understanding and inherent draw towards adaptations is that I was a huge reader as a child. I then stopped in high school and college, and now I'm once again a huge reader as an adult. And my dad, not a huge reader, but I would tell him about a book and he would be like, wow, that sounds good. I'm never gonna read it. And then a movie would come out and we would be able to share that. So I think that's part of why I want the adaptation to be good so that I can have something to share. Also, what I imagine is never gonna be what turns up on the page, and I know that. So that's something that's super important for viewers of adaptations. The book is always going to be better. Always going to be better, especially if you read the book first. The book's always going to be better because you know what everything looked like in your head, and it was directly made for you, by you, how it looked. Most adaptations are going to be better as the original format than the adaptation because there are so many constraints on film as a media source. There are so many things that you just can't do. You can't have these fantastical elements that are to the degree that you can imagine because you have to figure out how to do it. That's just how it works. You can't make aliens that look so terrifying and not have somebody who can see right through the costuming or the CGI or whatever it is, because that's just a constraint of the media. You can't do the same thing you can do in a book or a cartoon that you can with a live action film or TV show. A well done adaptation should capture the heart of the media source that it's getting at. It should share the same foundational points and move on a track towards the end point. Books and longer format visual medias like video games, cartoons, anime, whatever, animated films have more breathing space for what they are capable of exploring just from the sheer lack of time constraint that a movie would have and the physical constraints of what a live action film would have. A good adaptation takes all of the major heart driving story points and puts them into the movie. No movie is going to have every single moment that each independent reader felt was very powerful, but it will have the overarching moments that are important in connecting plot to the character's development, characters to other characters, characters to locations that they need to be, driving forces to get them to locations to continue with the plot moving forward, and things like that. And adaptations regularly take characters out because they don't serve enough of a purpose throughout the whole story to keep them in for one moment in their adaptations format. So sometimes some characters adjust their purposes and hit those markers in a different way, which is always upsetting to readers because we know that there was a character that was there that's no longer there. But it's a necessary change for the medium. That's just sort of sometimes it's not good, but it's required for the medium and they do the best they can with it. So I would like to give some adaptations that I know from personal experience or from slightly outside of me. Somebody else read and watched the movie and the book, personal experience. Some adaptations that I think did a good job are The Hunger Games, the Twilight movies. I'm not saying that the Twilight movies are good. I'm saying they did a good job capturing the story of the books, capturing the heart of the books. The books also weren't good. I read them and devoured them in my youth. So this is fine. The Percy Jackson television series that just came out, very well done. The Queen's Gambit, I did read the book after I saw the show because I wanted to know what the vibe was, because I never would have picked up a Walter Tevis book without watching the documentary about the making of that show, because they were very passionate about it. So I read that book as well. I actually have a video on the Queen's Gambit up here. Lord of the Rings, which I have not read nor have I watched because it's not really in my vibe, but I have talked to people who have said that the movie does better at telling the story than the books do for their personal experience. So I would say that that's a good adaptation because it cuts out the fluff that doesn't necessarily pertain to every possible reader and almost every single Nicholas Spark movie adaptation. But his books are also following a template that the movies basically follow as well, so they are very easy to adapt. A harder transition to do, other than from page to screen, is from screen to screen, which has been done and proven multiple times over that it is very difficult to go from screen to screen with an adaptation. They are almost never satisfying to the viewers who are coming for nostalgia's sake because you already have something that is built into those constraints or close to those constraints that people have an experience with and have something that they are attached to with. So by adapting something that's already in the media form that they have experienced it with on a screen into a media form that is still also on a screen, it doesn't leave very much room for the benefit of the doubt that comes from like, okay, yeah, I understand that they had to cut this character because there's not enough space for it in this format, the way that books to movies have. Screen to screen, not great. Animation to live action, regularly, why are we doing it? I haven't played very many video games, so I'm not entirely sure what the benefit of going from video game to television show is, but I'm pretty sure that story-driven video games like The Last of Us make for good television. In terms of adaptations from animation to live action that I don't think did well, there are so many Disney ones. The live action Lion King, which was just a different form of animation. Beauty and the Beast, I don't remember. I think it was just like people were like, why are we doing this? I will admit full force, I had no interest in seeing these. I've never, ever thought this animated movie or TV show needs to be made into a live action for me to enjoy it. I've never once in my life had that experience. Now we have not one, but two terrible adaptations of the Avatar the Last Airbender series, which I am regularly wearing references of on my body. I have a lot of passion towards the original show. I can quote some of the scenes along with the show playing while it's going without recognizing that I am quoting the scenes. I'm definitely in the court of a major fan of it, and I walked out of the theater during the first movie adaptation that doesn't exist to the fandom as like a tweenager. I don't remember what year it came out, but I saw it when it came out and I did not want to be there. So let's talk about from a logical standpoint rather than an emotional standpoint, because I can so go from an emotional standpoint about Netflix's new Avatar, which I'll be fully honest with you, I've only watched about 30 minutes of the first episode. I am currently planning a hate watch. If my hate watch is entertaining enough, I will probably put out a video of me doing that. So let's talk about the logics, the techniques behind why an adaptation fails or succeeds. You have to kind of think about your story as a pyramid. So you've got your required base model, your base of this pyramid, which is the world, the characters. Each individual character is their own like individual piece of the bottom of this pyramid. The plot, the conflict, the bad guys, these like general things that make the story what it is. The main characters, the characters that are always with your main character, your focal point character. In Avatar's case, those characters would be Aang, Sokka, Katara, Zuko, Iroh, Suki, Toph, these like core characters. And then your bad guys, Azula, Mai, Ty Lee, Ozai, those are your focus main bad guys. And then you have your side characters that come in when they come in. So those are the characters that you need to have as a base layer. In terms of the first season, Toph's not in it. Cool. Narrowed that down a little bit. Each part of this foundation has its own path up towards the top of the pyramid, which is the very end of the story. Sometimes that path swirls and whirls and stays in a place for too long and interacts with other characters, other locations, other aspects of this base layer, that's how it proceeds. That's how you get up to the top of the pyramid, how you get to the end of the story. All of these interactions, these character developments, these moments of strife and trials and adjustment, that's how the characters get to the end in the original format. A good adaptation does most of that. A good adaptation starts with the correct baseline. Perhaps they remove a couple of auxiliary parts of that foundation. You don't remove any of the core of it, and you get a smaller pyramid. It's the same pyramid, it's just smaller. They're still impressive. They're still doing the cool thing. It's still a pyramid. That's awesome. But you streamline it a little bit. So instead of having all of these loop-de-loops, you just get straight lines. Hello, editing Sammi here. I made this graphic separate from the process of editing this video. I made it on a separate computer that does not have the video on it. So I was going based off of my memory of what I explained, and it turns out I did not explain parts of this graphic that I made. So I did just want to point out, because it will come in beneficially later on, that these little bolts that are within the graphic are also still important for the structure and understanding and like going through the process of the story. It's the same level of importance as your foundation. That's why it's the same shape. It's just a little bit smaller because it comes in later, and it's not like integral to the foundation of your story. It's integral to the structure and the integrity of your story. If you don't have the walls in the right spot on the structural integrity of your house, if you have the foundation right, but you're missing walls, your roof is going to fall down. So I did just want to point that out, because if you're missing them, you're missing them, and that makes it not the same story. Anyways, back to the video. Straight lines that sometimes come over and mix with the other characters, but you don't do the like sticking around in places for too long. You just keep moving. You keep the character's progression going, and you experience some of those moments by like little pauses there. It's not like an overextended chapter of this character's story. A bad adaptation, or an adaptation that's not working, takes this foundation of characters, this foundation of the story, and tweaks it just enough to make it not work. They turn the dials on these characters and their trajectory changes. There's so much work that you have to do to get them to pull back into those plot points where they need to be for the story to progress to get to that point at the top. They change that foundational aspect of the characters, the world, whatever it is, just enough that you start to get kind of an uncanny valley sort of feeling about the characters, where you know that they're not right, and they're trying so hard to be right, and it looks right, and it could be right, but they're not right. It's not right. You have that for the whole experience of the show. All of this is just sort of like just enough off-putting that it's not right. It's not there. And they're trying their best. They're trying their best. Sometimes adaptations think they have to change something to make it their own. I think that that's not necessary in terms of what an adaptation is for, what the purpose of it is personally. And I love adaptations in theory. But when you feel like you deserve or have to make adjustments to make it stand out, why are you making it? Just write a new story. Just write a new movie to make it something different. So some books to movie adaptations that I think did not do a good job, that have that kind of like, it's just off. It's not there. It's not in the right spot yet. The Percy Jackson movie, they tweaked those dials. They changed the trajectory of those characters a lot, and it's almost unrecognizable from the book, because they just said, we're gonna build our pyramid on the side. We're gonna start with our base this way, and then we're gonna turn all of the characters so it goes this way, and that's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna get to this endpoint, but we're gonna say it's over here. World War Z, also not a great adaptation. It's been a minute since I've seen it, but it just sort of like, the heart of the story was not there. They had things in it, but it didn't feel right. The Time Traveler's Wife. I read The Time Traveler's Wife as like my first book out of college to get me out of a reading slump, and it worked. And then I watched the movie, and it was so not even a little bit the same as what the book was. And then they had that short section of an adaptation TV show that was closer, but they stopped. I haven't heard anything else about it. It stopped in the middle of the story, which is not a good adaptation either. But I'm specifically talking about the movie. And Divergent, I also don't think was great. I don't think it got the heart of the story so much as it got the like excitement of the world. I think it was missing aspects of what made the characters a part of that world effectively. I think that screen-to-screen adaptations are inherently harder to do in general, just because there's a lot more that you have to adjust to make it worth making. You can't really tell the same story in a screen adaptation of a screen media. I'll be totally honest with you, I did just want to make this video to have the opportunity to complain in a effective and productive manner about the new Netflix adaptation of Avatar the Last Airbender. That is exclusively the only reason I started digging into this well of knowledge that I have. And I think that it's just really practically impossible to make a good adaptation of something that was already on screen and already doing a great job. It's inherently harder to make a screen-to-screen adaptation because you have to make tweaks. There's no point creatively in making a shot-for-shot adaptation of something. I think that's a waste of time, a waste of money, and a waste of effort. If you can't do it better, then why try and do it at all? I do feel the same way that if you're not going to do better, then why do it at all? Even if in terms of if the changes that you make the story not as good. If you're coming in with this great, amazing thing that people love and have loved for a decade and continue to love and continue to seek out more media of, or rewatch and re-engage with and reconnect with this story and use as reference points for how to tell a good story, you have to do better. You have to do better than the original. And if you don't expect to do better and just to put it into a different format, is it worth it to just disappoint the fans of the original thing? At that point, again, if you're not going to do better than the thing you're adapting, write a different story. Start something different. Try something new. Tell a different story. Like if they were like, hey, we want to adapt the Kyoshi books, the series of books about Kyoshi, into a live action series, I think that would have been fantastic. I think that would have been perfect because there's nothing to compare it to, just the books. And at that point, we know how a book to movie adaptation works. And you would get to see Kyoshi being awesome. You get to see Kyoshi being awesome in this one as well for some reason, some unknown reason. I haven't gotten that far in the show, so I can't be upset with it. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So let's talk about what we know from interviews, not even from the actual show, from interviews about the Netflix Avatar the Last Airbender adaptation. The showrunner, Albert Kim, said, and I quote, "We had to sometimes unravel storylines, remix them in a new way to make sense for a serialized drama." So I want that to sink in, that they had to sometimes unravel storylines. So instead of taking your foundational block and seeing where it goes and tracing that in a streamlined way, they undid it. Okay, and remixed it, which the turn of phrase there is upsetting to me personally, to make sense for a serialized drama is what he said. My concern with that is that Avatar the Last Airbender, the Nickelodeon animated show, broke the structure of animated television for children by being the first serialized drama cartoon for kids. So you didn't do any research. There's no research there. If you had to change the foundations, you had to unravel storylines to make it make sense for a serialized drama when you aren't recognizing that you are adapting a serialized drama already. Yes, it's funny. It's a funny show. It's made for children, but there are a lot of dramatic elements to it. And it's serialized. It's the example of serialized. If you look at an episode of Avatar the Last Airbender from book 3, and then you watch that, say book 3, episode 4, you watch that, and then you go to book 2, episode 7, you're gonna be so confused. You're gonna be so confused. You go from book 1 to book 3 to book 2, back to book 1, you're not paying attention. You're lost. You're not having a good time. You do that with Scooby-Doo, season 1, season 2, season 3, season 4. They're all basically the same. That may as well be in chronological order. Season 4, season 2, season 3, season 1. Who cares? That's an episodic animated show because you can put it into a different order. It's already serialized. Why are you unraveling storylines to make something serialized that's already serialized. The fact that you have storylines to unravel is a sign that it is already serialized. Your episodes go in an order. They have to go in the correct order. In terms of understanding that original reference point that I said about what makes a good adaptation is the foundation staying the same and then streamlining inside of your pyramid. They've taken the original pyramid, unraveled it, and then tried to put it back together. And they failed. There's no way to succeed at trying to get the same thing when you take it apart and it's so fragile as a character's storyline. And not only are they not taking it apart and then trying to put it back together the same way, they're taking it apart and remixing it, reorganizing it, changing aspects that are important to the character's baseline, the storylines they've unraveled. So I believe that this quote was about either one of two things that were changed, that were unraveled, that I know of exclusively from the interviews. It was either in response to removing Aang's youthfulness and playfulness and the joyful spirit of a 12-year-old from it, or it was in terms of removing the misogyny from Sokka's character at the start of the show, toning down the misogyny of Sokka's character at the start of the show. I have thoughts. I'm going to share them. I understand that you can lessen some traits in a character, limit them, tone them down to put the show into a more modern perspective, or putting a heavier foot into the seriousness of the show rather than the kid aspects of the animated show. I understand how you can do that. But when you take out a character trait to force another one to be more important, you lessen the ability of the character trait that you are trying to highlight from being something that makes a character feel well-rounded. They took out character traits from characters and made them feel flat when they started off in the original media, in the original source media. They started off fully rounded, well-developed characters. They took things out to remix them. By adjusting those things, you now have other areas in that baseline pyramid compensating for the lack of it. And that's a problem. Because by pulling out Sokka's misogyny, now you've put Katara into a place where her character is inherently playing into misogyny, which is the opposite of what she stood for in the cartoon. You're taking out the heart of the characters. You're taking out the opportunity that Sokka has to grow as a character. So he just gets to be the same. That's flat storytelling. I don't know that he remains the same. They may force him into a development, but by taking out his misogyny, you change how he'll navigate interacting with Suki, whose whole point is to say, hey, women are badass. Shut up. I'm stronger than you. You think you're tough because you're a man. Let's unlearn your misogyny right now. Let's unlearn what you think you are. You're not tough just because you're a boy. Sorry. That's the whole dynamic. So if he's not a misogynist, then how is his relationship with Suki going to happen? What's the point of it? Does that end up inherently putting Suki into a more misogynistic perspective? Probably, because why is she helping him? It's not proving something anymore. Now it's going to be helping him in some way. Why does she want to help him? I can understand Suki wanting to prove that women are stronger than men when they are trained properly. I can absolutely support that. But in terms of Suki as a character, for my understanding of Suki, not the one in the show, why would she help Sokka learn a way of battle that is designated for women on her island? Why would she allow him that? I wouldn't. Suki is competitive. If she wasn't competing, then why would she share something that is so culturally important to her, so inherent to her personality, to her understanding of self, to her identity as a Kyoshi warrior, as a person from the Kyoshi Islands? It has to be something that reads misogynistically in the subtext, rather than having it be something in the main text that is like, hey, this is bad. We're going to comment on how this is bad. We're just going to inherently mix it in. It's a part of the story. It's a part of the story. And they said it's not good enough for this story in 2024. You can change the jokes. People are still misogynists in 2024. It still happens. And if you think that you can just take it out and the story will work the same way, it's not going to happen. The story will naturally adjust to pertain the things if you're trying to keep it on the track to the same ending point. There is absolutely a way to make Nickelodeon's Avatar the Last Airbender dark, gritty, dangerous, serious. You can absolutely do it. It's there. It's in the material. The fact that it was made for children made a lot of those really dangerous, gritty, dark moments not just so that kids could watch it. It's a war. There's a war going on. If you focus on the fact that there's a war going on and create imagery for the danger and the death and the stakes of having a war going on around children, you've created an automatically very dark, very serious show. You just have to put the stakes onto the fact that these are kids fighting a war. These are kids who are the determination of how this war will go for the world. These are kids who are navigating this pain. These are kids who are becoming masters of their elements. There's dark, there's gritty, there's danger in that inherently. You don't have to change it to make it that. You don't have to change the characters. You can juxtapose the fact that Aang is this like, I want to go penguin sledding. I want to have fun. I want to not have these responsibilities with the dangers of him not having taken care of those responsibilities so easily to create those stakes. You don't have to force it onto a 12-year-old. It requires looking at the source material as a whole text, as a whole complete story, looking at everything and seeing what you can pull to make that, rather than unraveling what's already there. You don't have to unravel it. You just have to highlight things differently. It's not hard. And the fact of the matter is that I think if they had anybody who cared about the show as a showrunner on this, as a writer on this, if they had anybody who actually cared about the source material, they would have been able to do it. Whatever happened that alienated the original creators from being a part of this led to this. Because the same thing happened with the Percy Jackson movie. Rick Riordan was alienated from the process. He said, hey, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. You aren't going to tell the story. You can't do this. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And they said, I don't care, actually. We're just going to skip those notes and we're going to do it our way because we know what's working. We know what's selling. We don't care that we are pandering to your audience and you know what your audience wants. We're going to skip your notes. Same thing happened here. I'm not sure. They haven't posted it on their blog the way that Rick Riordan did, but something happened that they publicly said, we are no longer a part of this. And that was the moment that I decided I wasn't excited about it. I'm not paying attention to the news. I don't care what the characters look like. I don't care what it looks like because it's not going to be good. They alienated the people who made the one that I love. They're not going to do a good job because if they did anything in any kind of respectful way to the original source material, they would have stayed on. But they didn't. So they've disrespected the people who made it and they're disrespecting the fans. And some people may disagree with me. Some people may think it's totally fine, but not everybody has an education in screenwriting and analyzing medias the way that I do, and also knowing how to write an adaptation, knowing the structures and logic behind it. Other people are absolutely entitled to their opinions of this being okay. I think that it shouldn't have been made if it wasn't going to be great. And I don't think that we needed a shot-for-shot adaptation. That's stupid. I went to film school. That's dumb and lazy and boring. I don't want that. But telling a good story is literally all I'm here for. And the fact that no movies tell good stories anymore is why I don't watch TV or movies. They just don't write effectively anymore. And Avatar the Last Airbender did a great job, and it was my awakening to wanting to write for TV, write for movies, write stories that really made an impact. The fact that he said he wanted to remix their storylines is so upsetting to me because I also love music. And anytime that there is a remix of a song where they're like, remix, and they're like really excited that it's a remix, it's never good. They always take all of the meat of the song out and add a bunch of junk and just have the chorus in it where you can recognize the chorus. And that's what it is. And the best remixes are the ones that you don't know are a remix. Like, I like the remix of Billie Eilish's song Watch. The remix that is called And Burn, ampersand, burn, I thought that was the real song. And I get disappointed when I hear the real version because it doesn't have as much. And it's not like, oh, it doesn't have as much going on. It just, that remix doesn't announce that it's a remix. It doesn't announce that it's doing something different to the song. It just highlights the feelings of the song. Billie Eilish's version is kind of more fluid and like going. And it's an angry song. The content of the song, the lyrics of the song are angry. They're hurt. And Burn, it adds some punchy beats to it that kind of make it feel more angry, more hurt, more like punching back. And that's a good remix. That's a good adaptation. It's just highlighting the things that make the source what they are, what it does well. You don't announce that you're remixing something and get something good out of it. But that is my personal opinion on remixed music and adaptations. So don't take my opinions to heart. If you like this video, please leave a like. It'll really help me out and help the algorithm know that there are other people who want to rage about the Avatar Netflix series in a educated way. If you want to see me do a rage watch, with my partner who also went to film school, I focused in production and screenwriting, and he focused in theory and analyzing films and that kind of stuff. We were thinking about watching it together, rage watching simultaneously, which I think would be a blast. But if you want to see that, let me know in the comments. But yeah, that is all that I've got for you this week. Thank you for sitting through this with me. But I will see you guys next week, probably, for another video.